so you can have that.
Well, hi, I'm a son of a Sunni. Graduated in 1987. 30 years for my dad, who just graduated, in 67. I could talk for hours about all the memories here in Kirksville. I had a lot of great ones, and one of my classmates is here, Howard Levine, and he's on the alumni board, and we did a lot of things together. But one of the fond memories I had was Al Jacobs came into the class and said that we could do our our electives anywhere that it was approved by the AMA or AOA. And so at that point, we didn't have computers, but we went ahead and wrote on parchment paper around to different places and said, could we do a psych rotation? And we did it in London. So we wrote a letter to the head hospital in London, England, and we asked, could we do a psych rotation there? And sure enough, we got a letter back saying he'd love to have us. So then went into Al Jacobs' office and said, well, remember about what you said? And he goes, well, yeah. And I said, we're going to London. He goes, no, you're not. And I go, you said we could as long as it's AMA or AO approved. He goes, oh, okay. So anyway, we had a great time. We got to spend 3 weeks, actually 4 weeks there in London, and we worked Monday through Friday in the hospital, and then we had the weekends off. You got to see a lot of London, so it was great. So anyway, that's just one of many memories that I had here at Kirksville.
Well, I had brothers. I'm not really, didn't really graduate in 67, but I spent 3 years with you guys. I took my post-op in culture. After I was graduated, I interned at KCOM and took an internal medicine residency. Max Gutensohn was my chief of service. I'm going to tell you a story that I think is a funny story about Dr. Max. So when he finished his schooling, there were no internal medicine residencies available to DOs. But to his credit, he arranged 12 one-month rotations throughout the world. One of those rotations was in Denmark with Dr. Meulengrath, and some of you that are old enough probably remember the Meulengrath diet for ulcers. So Meulengrath was a world-famous physician. So Max was working at Still Hildreth, which was a mental institution at the time. One of the patients said, well, I know Dr. Meulengrath. Let me give you a letter of introduction. So he had a letter of introduction, and he joined the World Health Organization. So he had communicated ahead of time, and he showed up in Meulengrath's office, and he gave the secretary his WHO card and his letter of introduction from this patient at Still Hildreth. So the secretary said, have a seat, Dr. Gutensohn. So in short order, he was ushered into the exam room, and Meulengrath had a 12-year-old boy on the exam table. And he said, well, hi, Dr. Gutensohn, it's really nice to see you. I'd like your opinion about this young man. So Max examined him. He had lymphadenopathy everywhere, and so Max says, well, I can't be sure, but I think he has lymphocytic leukemia. But I'd have to look at a blood film to be sure. So Meulengrath whips out a microscope from under his desk, flips the blood film on there. So Max looks at that, and he said, yes, he said, I can be pretty sure that he has lymphocytic leukemia. So Max had a great month with Meulengrath, and at the end of the rotation, Meulengrath, who was independently wealthy, said, you and Dr. Olin must come to my house for dinner tonight. This is your last night. So I will send a car for you. So he sends a car, they pick him up at the hotel, take him to Meulengrath's home, where the servants, they have a great meal. It gets to be late, they're visiting. Meulengrath dismisses the servants, and they're drinking aquavit and Danish beer, a little looped, as you might imagine. So Meulengrath takes them back to the hotel and leaves them off and starts to drive away and backs up and he rolls down the window. And Max goes over to the window and he says, yes. And Meulengrath says, oh, by the way, the gentleman who gave you the letter of introduction. And Max thought, well, he's going to say hi. He says, never heard of him. So the test was the 12-year-old boy on the table, and Max's opinion was if he had screwed that up, it would have been a courteous thank you for visiting, but I don't have time to spend with you, and would have been summarily dismissed. So that was one of the many, many stories I know about Max Gutensohn. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Jim Stevens. I don't know if I'm wrong here. I graduated in '71. Memories, I stuck around for 15 extra years and taught, so I must have had something about it. You gotta talk into the mic. Close. That's better. Jeez. Must have been something special. I stuck around for 15 years and taught. And I've been coming in and out ever since, so I've seen the presidents come and go, and I've seen deans come and go, and it's been an interesting time. I'm working on my 50. I haven't quite got there yet. I'll be there in a few years. Thank you.
I'm Rob Immonen, and I graduated in '67. I had taken the PATH fellowship primarily because the lady on my left side was graduating in '67, and I figured I might as well wait around and graduate at the same time she did. And I saw her on the first day that they started school. And then I ended up dealing with 103 of her older brothers. She was the only woman in the class. And every one of them thought they were a protector. So, but we've been together now for 52 years.
Oh, what a good track record.
Somebody eminent, and I can't add a lot to that. But it's very interesting to be back here because we came back about 5 years ago, and it took us 45 years to get back to Kirksville because we hated it so much. It was so ugly. The whole state was ugly. And we came back and we said, "There's really beauty here. This is wonderful." Why did we hate it? We didn't see anything. All we did was go between home and the hospital and the classes. So we never saw a bed. So now we're enjoying it. Thank you.
I'm going to speak for my wife of 56 years. I'm going to take you back to the U.S. Navy. I was a naval officer and met her on the golf course. If you'll notice the time, we still do play golf. Handicap of 9, thanks to her. She took me through the U.S. Navy for 2 years, then through University of Massachusetts, where she worked for a local psychiatrist. Then she worked at Kirksville for DeVito, Sam DeVito. And we saw him. I rounded the corner at Detroit Osteopathic Hospital after finishing the internship with the M&Ms in Portland, Maine, and I said, "My God, Sam DeVito, what are you doing here?" He was taking a cardiac fellowship. So subsequent to that, I went into endocrinology. It was the third endocrinologist. I think John Sutton was probably the 5th or 6th endocrinologist, but he's more skilled than I am because he's still practicing. But DOH, a 2-year fellowship in internal medicine with good training from Max Gutensson, because I came to Max one day limping at age 31, and I said, "I've got pain in my big toe." And he said, "You've got gout." I said, "What's that?" And he was right. He was right. He was extremely sharp as a teacher. I have had no reoccurrences of gout, but I am on Uloric. So that takes care of that. But my wife was faithful during the 4 years at Kirksville, and still faithful. As you see, she's in a wheelchair, stricken for the last 30 years with multiple sclerosis. We have 3 children. Malcolm wanted to become a DO, and I said at that time there was no research capable of his capacity at that time. So he's an MD down in Florida, Ocala. Stuart, the older one, he was a roaring rebel, secondary to my failure as a father. I donated too much time to medicine and not enough to my family. A roaring alcoholic for 15 years, now in a church, now married, and a successful chiropractor. And Annie, my third child, is a school teacher down in Northport. So our legacy is Christian in basis, and it's a very good story. The last story I'll tell you about Kirksville is Bill Swords and I studied together so we wouldn't flunk out.
Good evening. First of all, I want to thank my father and my grandfather and my uncle, because I probably would have never been accepted to Kirksville except for them. They all went to Kirksville. Secondly, quick story on Malcolm. Malcolm calls me after we got out of school. We're residents in Detroit, osteopathic, and he says, "Jay, I'm sick. Pat's in labor, you got to take her to the hospital." So I go by and pick her up, take her to the hospital, go in the labor room with her, not in the labor room, but pre-labor, take off my shirt, I'm shaking, in comes the nurse and looks at me and says, well, never mind. And I said, "Pat, you don't want me to go in the labor room, the birth room?" She said, "No, thank you." And I said, "Thank you." So for 3 days, I'm Pat, I'm Malcolm. And he never comes because he's very sick with the flu. But we had the baby and got the baby home, right? Pat? And last, but second to last, is all of you guys and gals. There's nothing like what we had in those years. Nothing like it. In my professional career, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me, to be in this profession, to know all of you all the fun stories we have. Some of them we can't tell, but all the fun stories we have. Great camaraderie, and what a great profession. And last but not least, my wife of 25 years now, Beth, was president. She worked in medical hospitals. She finally came to work for Fort Worth Osteopathic Hospital, and we met after a couple of years and got together, and she was president of the advocates for the Texas Association, and you know, we've had a lot of battles there trying to keep that school from being an MD school, and she's been instrumental in it. So very fortunate, life very good. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bob Temkin. I'm a class of '67. I can thank, like Jay, I can thank my uncle Dave Steinbaum and my cousin Howard Levine, who's deceased, for being an osteopathic physician. They worked hard to get me in here, but I worked hard to get out of here. Well, I can tell you that I really loved the days in Kirksville, and I can tell you I really cried when I got out of here. We had a baby right before I graduated. But some of my best times being out from Bayonne, New Jersey, yes. And it's sort of, I'm a city boy, and going out to Dr. John Chase's farm, and trying to ride his horses. He had the bulls. I drove a tractor. I helped pick corn, and I thought I could eat it, but it wasn't the eating type corn. And you know, I mean, working with a pick and shovel, and that was all part of the Kirksville experience, and it was quite an experience. And I'm glad that I can get back. This is, I think, my second or third trip back. I came back when my kid cousin graduated about 5 years ago, and they donated the Steinbaum Levine wall, and my picture is on that wall. And my daughter's an osteopathic physician. She went to Nova Southeastern because I didn't want her to come to Kirksville. I said, "You stay home." You know, that's in Plantation, Florida. I now live in Islamorada, Florida, which is the beautiful Florida Keys. It was until Irma.
Hi, Bill Source, class of '67. I come from Brooklyn, New York. When I arrived in Kirksville, it was quite culture shock. I thought, it's been 4 years here. But I had a good time here. Met a lot of good friends, and looking out at this lake here, I spent a lot of hours out here fishing, and it was a great time, and we all survived it and did well, I think. And I'm still practicing part-time, working as a preceptor of family practice residency program. My wife Cheryl here, we'll be married 50 years next summer. We have 3 sons. One of them is went to MSU COM, is an orthopedic surgeon, and life is pretty damn good. Better than I ever thought it was going to be.
Larry Wickless, class of 1967. I was talking, well, I can almost, everybody in this room here I can tell something about. Because, well, you know, Gary and I were born in Kirksville, over here. Ed Bruns and I started freshman in undergraduate school in chemistry. That's where I first met Ed. And I can just go around the table here and tell stories. John Sutton down there did not tell you what he is because he's president of the American College of Orthopedic Internists this year. And he held court in Washington, D.C. And Jay and I were there, and John, so, and then Paul Kodelko in our class also was president of ACOI. But, you know, just, I can go around here and tell stories just about everybody here. And then there's the Davis Family Reunion, which we spent 25 years here, a week at a time, and we used to take over all the cabins, and Steve Cole ran this place then. His wife, I just talked to her here a while ago, but I've got so many memories. I think Kirksville is such an eclectic place, and there's so many good memories, and these memories from the people that I went to school here with all you in the class of 67, and ahead of us and behind us, because we kind of ran everything up and down. They were just great times. And then, if I remember correctly, there were 2 guys in our class from Germany, and one of them was right next to here.
Am I right? Yes.
See, I do remember. And the other one's Gary Flegel, and he and I rotated together.
Thank you.
My name is Bodo Pico, 67, and our class had 101 students. One of them was a lady. Her name was Elodie. And I looked at Elodie, and we studied together until Rob came along. Blew the whole thing. Anyways, I have 4 children. One of them became a DO. I am very grateful for Kirksville, or KCOM, accepting me as a student and graduating me. It gave me a wonderful life, and I'll never forget it, and I thank them forever.
Gary Sapman, class of 67. And like Larry, I was a local boy. I went to a one-room schoolhouse in Winnetka, Missouri for 8 years. And then I became a Northeast State College student. And then just came right on to Kirksville. I remember Bodo Pico here. We was doing a preceptor. I was in Tampa, osteopathic, and he was in Orlando. I remember going all the way over there, and we had a great time. And just glad to graduate. I think it's a wonderful place.
I'm Mary Bruns from the class of 66. I also am local from the Gibbs area, and last year at our reunion I said when I grew up I thought the abbreviation for doctor was DO. I didn't know any different than that. So our class started with 104, and there were 4 women in that class. And there were 63 of us totally who graduated, and we always referred to your class as the anniversary class because we knew you would all graduate because we didn't make it through. The attrition rate was changing with the anniversary class.
Talk into the mic.
We worked hard.
I know.
Thank you. Yes, and Dr. Bruns, Mary Bruns, received her gold medallion last year. I said, where is that? You need to wear that proudly.
Well, I have it hanging on the wall above my badge from when I got the honor to serve on the licensing board.
Very good.
So I have it on the wall.
Richard Koss, class of 82. A lot of good people in the class of '82 have gotten pretty prominent, like Dr. Wilson and others. You know, John Leach-Doan down in Texas doing a lot of good research and so forth. And so, a lot of good memories from a kid from New Jersey coming out here was quite an experience. I got interested in osteopathy from a little old DO when I was doing my undergraduate in Springfield, Massachusetts. She graduated from ATSCOS in 1926 and just did 10-finger work for over 50 years in Springfield. And I just thought that was just the cat's pajamas when her patients come from all over the state of Massachusetts to see this woman. And she would still see patients like 2 or 3 a day because her shoulders were shot. She was pretty old. Her it's so interesting because she did have a skeleton in her closet in the corner of her treatment room in her house, and her her electronic medical records was actually a 5x7 card that she pulled out of a shoebox, and that was the family record of treatment for all of the for the entire career that she had on these people. It's quite amazing, and she charged $4 a treatment still, and that was in 1978. So, kind of interesting. Spent some time in the Air Force. The military loves DOs because a lot of times they like to spend money on airplanes and bullets, but not on medicine. So when you had to do things when you're in the middle of maneuvers, when you have no electricity or anything else, and somebody has pneumonia or something, or a bad back or something, that you can always pull out your hands and get to work on no matter what surface. A lot of good stories from Kirksville. Spending time out here at Thousand Hills playing frisbee in the springtime when the snow would melt was always kind of fun. And studying with Bruce, sometimes trying to survive pharmacology was always quite the deal, and trying to help him buy a new antique truck so that he could restore. So lots of good memories of Kirksville. I came back here, did the residency in OMM in '87, was on faculty here at the OMM department for a couple of years. Then 10 years down at TCOM, and then back what I do like the most is just treating people with 10 fingers, and I lecture all over the world doing osteopathy. So also like to shout out to this crazy guy next to me, Dr. Still. I was an intern in St. Louis, and Dr. Bruns behind me. I was an intern down there at Normandy Osteopathic. That was a great experience, and as most of us will say, we were extremely well trained and could handle pretty much anything right after this internship. And a good osteopathic education. So, so thankful for the Kirksville experience.
Pass it on there. That's right.
Hi, Srini Hijibu, class of 1992. First time back in Kirksville, and it was an eye-opening experience to see all the new buildings. So we're really thankful for this reunion.
Melissa Paw, class of 1992. Again, I haven't been back in 25 years, and it's been very interesting to see the changes that's been made, and it's fun to be back. And I just got here, so tomorrow will be fun exploring some more.
52's class of 92. First time I've been back also. But looks great for all the new buildings. Too many memories again. Choose one to talk about. Currently I'm working at Fort Carson. I'm active duty Army. So, for the past 21 years.
Maggie Wilson. Hi again. I went to school with these guys, 82. I don't know what I was thinking, but pretty big group. But it was great. You know, I grew up in Kirksville. Max Skutensong was my grandparents' friend, and Dr. Bill Maddox was our next door neighbor. George Snyder and Presley Crummy lived down the block from us, and you know, we used to go trick-or-treating at their house, and George always scared all the neighborhood kids. So, but you know, I love our school. I love our profession. We're all so lucky.
I'm Bruce Laronis. My father's David S. Laronis. He graduated from Kirksville in '53. I graduated in '82. It was a tremendous part of my life. I can't think of what I'd be doing if it wasn't in a hospital position. Lisa and I have been married since 1982, 35 years. And anyway, when I came down here, I saw this 48 Chevy pickup. I had to have it. So I got an old truck, rebuilt in the backyard. Everybody thought I was nuts. I still have the truck and many more in the barn. I have two boys that are doing really well. Luke got the numbers mixed up, and he's an OD, he's an optometry school instead of a DO. I don't know if there's many optometry students that learn how to manipulate, but he's pretty good at it already. And we've had a lot of fun. Charlie still signed my dad's diploma, so that's pretty cool. That's hanging in my office now. And when Luke came down here we visited the school, he said, "This place changed you." I go, "Yeah, it did." And I never went back to Flint, the big city. I went to a small town. I've been there all these years. I'm still solo. I don't believe in electronic medical records. I still do a lot of manipulation. And Paul Kimberly told me, if you keep doing it that way, you're going to hurt. I do hurt. And he was a wonderful, wonderful instructor. George Snyder was just a superb anatomist. And my dad sicked him on me, so we always had George for tests. And I'll never forget that. And he made sure we didn't forget the anatomy. And it's just a wonderful experience. I can't ever say anything negative about it.
And today's his birthday.
I'm John Tompkins. I was in the class of 1967. We weren't very wealthy when we were here in Kirksville, but we did belong to Theta Psi fraternity and look forward to the Yama Yama dance. And I recently found my clown suit, and I'd like to let you know that I'm still in it. This is my wife of 54 years. She was here in Kirksville. Kathleen. Now, one other thing I might share with you. You know, we lived in student housing, and on the same floor, Curtis Thomas, that we called Buddy, lived there. And you weren't allowed to have any pets, but somehow he was able to keep a small dog, a 90-pound German Shepherd, in his apartment all 4 years.
Well, I thought sitting at the game I would have skipped this. Well, I'm Murphy Prensky, and I graduated in '61. And this is my second time back to Kirksville. The first time was 57 years after graduation. And everything still looked the same to me, except the place where I was living, they tore that down. That was 800 West Jefferson. That's gone. No, 600 West Jefferson. That's gone. Stills cabin was right behind the house. It was student housing. There were probably, I guess 8 couples living in that house, 2 or 3 on each floor. And there was a bathroom at the end of the hall for each floor, and you just had to wait your turn. Whatever bath or whatever it was, if you had a bunch of kids, do that. That's where we lived. So we lived that way for a couple of years. And I ended up interning at KCOS, and then I still wasn't enough for me. I had to stay on somewhere. So I signed on and as an instructor in cosmetic medicine. And George Shire was there at that time, and we shared the duties of watching over all the nursing homes. There was a nursing home in Edina that I used to go to when I was a senior, and the farmers in the area would come in there. They were really characters. I think they thought we were characters too. And we had absolutely no idea what we were doing. And Dr. Who was the tall fella? Real tall one? Dr. He looked like Abe Lincoln. I forgot his name already. Anyway, he's a fellow from, or at least somebody came around and oversaw what we were doing here. And one time it was a small place there. It was like a storefront, very small. And it had a basement, so I was curious. So I went back and opened up the trap door and dust and everything, and I walked out of there. And I pulled up this wicker box. It must have been, I guess, maybe 50 years old. It must have been there since the clinics were first opened. And I opened that up, and it was full of bone. bones. And nobody wanted them. I brought them to the school, and they said, we don't want those. And I was stuck with this big piece of bones. Strange thing. So I finally donated them to some school in where. Yeah. I got married while I was in Kirksville, but I didn't get married in Kirksville. I got married in California. My wife was from California. We were married 58 years. I met her by me visiting California one summer, and I went to visit my aunt, and my cousin had a girlfriend, and the girlfriend had a sister, so that's how I met my wife. And I dragged her back Kirksville, and we spent 3 years plus the other 3 years. So we spent a good 6 years together here, and we enjoyed the winters. They were very nice. And the locusts in the summer, you wouldn't believe it. The kids and everything.